Hey, I'm Kiana. I'm back. So, I'm Kiana. I am spilling the beans about my own version of New Age spirituality and why I believe in it and how I got there and all my little pieces. If you care, you care. If you don't, you don't. So, I think the last I left off, we were going to talk about me trying to be all of myself. So, as I've said, I like labels. They help me figure out where to go from there. They're a good jumping point, a good starting point. They're not. I'm sorry. It's a lot of talking. They're not mandatory. They're not limiting. They're just helpful. So things that I consider myself: bipolar, um, a witch, a Christian, an um, agnostic theist. How about that? I'm a Christian witch, agnostic theist, bipolar, Arcturian, nerd. And so the goal was to try to be all of these pieces out loud. And I've been trained to hide them. I've been trained that my natural voice is uncomfortable. I have been at events, like networking events, and you have to smile and be pretty, which I can do. But smiling hurts, okay? I like after a while, my cheeks hurt. Okay, my cheeks hurt. I don't want to do it all day. I don't have. I don't think I have resting bitch face, which is perfectly fine, but I don't. But I also don't have happy face. That's for darn sure. And I don't want to smile for a freaking hour. But it's one of the things you're supposed to do in networking and social situations. So, I'm being friendly, I'm being happy, keeping my cheeks up to make myself approachable. And maybe I'm talking to someone and I get distracted, like I need to pick up my drink or I need to grab my business card or I see something else and my face falls off. My mask falls off. And I have literally frightened people. I've literally frightened people. I've seen people startle and back up because my happy face fell off because I forgot to consciously keep it there, because that's what it's like being autistic. Many of the things that other people take for granted that they're able to do is not, especially socially, isn't innate or easy for us. It's almost like, imagine being perky is the same as blinking. And if you're in a social situation where you need to be perky, you could keep it on. But for an autistic person, they have to manually blink. They have to continue to remind themselves to blink. And if they forget, then they end up staring at somebody and freaking them out. So socializing is a little difficult. It's not horrible. I'm pretty good at it at this point. I've studied the hell out of it. This is part of the Asperger's, what is formerly known as Asperger's, sort of version of, especially young girls, studying people, mimicking their behavior, and therefore assimilating and getting along. However, it was never natural. It was almost never comfortable, and it's also taxing. It's tiring to hold the energy of that, and that's why we were wiped out the next day. I got to go home and sleep for 12 hours just to recover from going to a evening bar hop. So those are some of the things that make it difficult for me to just be me, because there are times where, even though we're in a day and age where everybody's really trying to be very accepting of everyone, there are times where I have to play the game and code switch in order to get along. Go along to get along. But much of me is now moving my life towards being my entire self out loud, being who I want to be, being who I actually am all the time, even if it's weird, being a Christian witch, even if I'm talking to a Christian who's like, that's not a thing. Okay, it's not a thing for you. It is for me. No mandatory that you have to accept me, but I accept me and I'm not changing it and I'm not hiding it and I won't deny it. So that trying to not deny or hide or eliminate a piece of yourself to avoid confrontation, to avoid conflict. But it's also about curating an environment of people, of worlds, of energies, of buildings, of organizations that welcome exactly who you are, the way you are. I think that's something, I didn't really quite get as a kid, as a teenager, that you could curate the environment you want. You could create it because naturally it's not there when you come out the box. It's not there. When you come out the box, you got what's there is what's there. The family you get is the family you got, and so you have to learn that what is isn't always, and so you can realize, oh, I can create it. Maybe it's a little painful to have to create it because maybe you have to cut some people out. That's not fun. But you can create the bubble you want to live in, the home, the life, the people, the world, the planet, the country. You can find the pieces that fit you and surround yourself with those. So that is something I didn't know, of course, as a kid. I didn't know as a teenager, and as I'm aging in normal chick fashion, as I become 40 and head towards 50, it's like, oh, people pleasing is leaving. Thank you, because I don't care. I don't care anymore, and I think it's just a normal, natural progression, but it also feels very valuable to my religion, how my spirituality, where it's going. It fits really well. I'm a nerd. I want to talk about Harry Potter, and I understand that there are political conflicts there. I understand those political conflicts. I agree with many of them. I fight for some of them, but I also just like the damn story, so that's hard to deal with. Even within myself, sometimes it's hard to deal with. But I want to talk about Harry Potter. I want to talk about my spirituality. I want to talk about music, and what you have to do is find the people who love those conversations. One of the mantras I live by, which has nothing to do with any of the religion that I've come across in my life, is just actually everything's okay as long as you're not harming yourself or harming anyone else. Anything that you're doing is fine as long as you're not harming yourself or harming anyone else. And then some things, someone will be harmed no matter what. But are you actively harming yourself? Or are you actively harming someone else? Back to how I bounce back and forth. I took a college course. It was an ethics course. And in the class, we had to, actually took two different types of ethics courses. So the first one of the questions we were asked was, if you were in a time period where food is beyond scarce and you have two children at home, two small children at home, and you went out to get some bread and you just have enough bread, there's got to be enough that it can only feed two people, right? Don't try to split it. There's only enough for two people. On your way back, you see two homeless children, and do you give them the bread? So basically the scenario becomes, do you give the bread to the homeless children that you came across on your way back, or do you say no to them and you take it home to your children? Every single person in the class said they would take it home to their children, except me. And I to this day, I don't quite understand them or me. Why is this? Why was this? And why was this question, this moment, so divisive for me? Why was I the only person on the side where I was? It's not that I don't understand my reasoning. It's not that I don't understand their reasoning. But why was I the only person in my location? In my opinion, even in this fake scenario, I have enough bread for 2 people, and 2 people were put in my path. There's a reason for that. And I have always believed that if someone asks me for food, I will give it to them. And I follow this to this day. If someone asks me for food, I do my best to give it to them. If I can, if I have it, I will give them food. I don't give people money. Sometimes what they need is money. I don't even always have money, but I will try my best to feed people if they ask me for food. It's almost, I've never been hungry a day in my life, but the empath in me in this exact moment swelling up for the fact that someone's so hungry they need to ask a stranger for food is, to me, one of the most painful things. It's almost like I can always feel their pain, though never having been hungry myself. Never having to live a life like that. Never having to have seen people like that. I did not grow up wealthy. I would say we were upper class poor. But I've never been hungry. But the idea that someone is that hungry hurts me. And so anytime someone asks me for food, I do my best to give them food. And it's awfully spiritually, cosmically coincidental that I have enough for 2 people, and 2 people are put in my path. And if I was able to go get this for my family, then I will go get more. I don't know exactly how, but I know I will find more. And I would give it to the 2 homeless children on my way. Everyone else took it home to their family because it's their family. It's their job to take care of their family. So what this does for me is it helped me lessen some of the black and white thinking of my normal traits. Because if we look at history, if we look at any sort of story, if we take that specific story, let's assume the person who's gone to go get the bread is wealthy. They have enough to give to the community, the 2 children they ran across. But they're selfish, and all they care about is themselves and their family. And as long as they and their family get along first, fuck everybody else. Hope y'all figure it out. Too bad. You should have did better. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Go figure it out. So they don't share with the community. They're like, I gotta take care of my family. I worked hard for this bread. So they take it home to their family. So the community, the children are like, you know, my person, my father, my mother, they took care of me. They brought us food. They made sure my family was good. They were always there for us. They're a good person. The community is like, they're selfish. They stand up there on their hill and they don't share and they don't give to anyone else. And they take only for themselves. And some people don't have the ability to get the access to the things that they could get. And they need to share with the community because all of us together can do more. That's that point of view. Let's say the person was me and it gives it to the community. Now we get a community who's like, this person fights for us. They love us. They care about us. They care about making sure that everybody gets on top. They work extra hard. That's a strong person right there. And then maybe their family is like treating them like you would a police officer. They're never home. They don't care about us. They care about everybody else's problems, but they don't care about our problems. They don't listen. They would let us starve. I'm over here suffering when you over there solving somebody else's problems. You don't care about your family. And maybe the person in one or the other situation is overworking themselves to try to feed strangers on the street, or to try to feed their family to the point where they're depleted and trying to live up to the expectations of feeding everybody, of doing more. Well, I do have the strength that some people don't have, so now I got to feed them and try to get it again and also feed my family. So it's all about perspective now, isn't it? See how it becomes very subjective. There's no black and white here. Somebody's going to lose. Somebody's going to be angry. Somebody's going to be left out. Someone's going to be shunned. Someone's going to be helped. Someone's going to be saved. Someone's going to be loved. Someone's going to be hurt. Someone's going to be tired, overworked, overwhelmed. Someone's receiving. Someone's giving. Someone's starving. Someone's stealing. So no matter how you change the circle, everybody can't win. And it's all about the perspective. That was a little eye-opening for me. I end up on this ethics tangent because I did want to talk about the second one. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the second one anyway, even if I can't figure out what my original point was. Perimenopause, brain fog, yay. Anyway, the second ethics course I took was called Biomedical Ethics. I think there might have been more words, but those were the essential words. And it was basically like a medical ethics course. And this course, almost weirdly, specifically, I was not in pre-med or anything, spoke on prenatal and like infantile. It was about kids in NICU. Okay, I don't know why that was the focus of the class, but it was an ethics class, and it just weirdly focused on neonatal ethics, the NICU and stuff. It's like it used that as the platform to teach ethics. It was kind of cool in retrospect. However, I cried every day I was in that class. I mean, I just sat in the room and cried. It was so much. This is basically the joke. You've seen enough hospital dramas to know that one of the main question scenarios of the class is, do you choose your mother, or do you choose the mother, or do you choose a child? If you're a husband, do you choose the mother, or do you choose a child? And our professor actually was a surgeon he worked in like the NICU and stuff, so he had seen real life instances of these scenarios. And he said the most common problem was the fact that couples had never discussed such a thing. Never. So the husbands had to make the decision on their own, and if they chose wrong, they were guilty for the rest of their life. The wife was like, you should have chose the baby and not me. Or he chose the baby and regretted it and missed his wife. Or, just real life consequences where fairness is not on the table. People were like, you and your spouse have no money and you already have 3 kids and now you have another one on the way. Do you have the other one even though you can't afford them? Do you give them up for adoption? Do you have an abortion? Things like you have twins, and if they go to full term, they'll both die. So you have to pick one. Those sorts of questions. Preemies being born so early that their skin was clear and you could see their organs. It was really interesting just showing us these real life scenarios. So now that I'm older and there's these political conversations of pro-life and pro-choice, when I know a lot of real life scenarios that do not allow for that black and white thinking, I have to constantly remind myself that not everybody knows all of the real life scenarios. They don't get access to them. They also don't get access to them in a way where they're allowed to sit with it for a critical thinking amount of time. Maybe nowadays we'll hear a story on social media and it's literally a swipe like, oh, that's terrible, and moving on. But, talking about it for a week, talking about a similar scenario for the next week, just sitting with these things and really hashing out the consequences, really taking the time to think them through, because you had to for a class. What must it be like for someone who has to for reality? Again, God's giving me scenarios and situations that are not mine to literally infuse empathy into me, even when I wasn't looking for it. So, somewhere in there, I began talking about how all of my pieces, and then me trying to be out loud with all my pieces, and then talking about my ethics. I don't know how that fit. I don't know where I started. I'm gonna just stop the video and maybe go look and see where I started. And then we'll get to the next situation. I know we were talking about why I believe I'm an Arcturian, but I really want to kind of talk about what that means to me to be an Arcturian, and how some of all the other stories of my other personality traits and past history fits into that being. Okay.